Okay, welcome everybody to the Brooklyn Music School. I'm the executive director. Thank you, Cruz Parto. It's a privilege and honor to host this meeting for a few different reasons. One of the reasons, first of all, is we're honored to have a living legend with us, Mr. Billy Harper. Thank you. It's really great, especially we deal with a lot of youngsters and a lot of children. For them to be associated with an artist like this is, I think, an incredible opportunity for everybody, and we're glad to have him back in this context, and hopefully maybe we'll have him back in other contexts. Part of the great thing about Musicians for Musicians is that it has been able to allow us to develop partnerships with great musicians, and we have Musicians for Musicians to thank for the great Arturo O'Farrell being on our Artist Advisory Board, and we'll be honoring him
The real board.
No, he's on our Artist Advisory Board. But
yours?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So he's on our Artist Advisory Board, and we're going to be honoring him at our gala on October 25th in Dumbo. So I think what that really shows is that we are one big family, we're one big community, and I know Sohrab has done a lot of hard work in trying to create that in regards to music being a vocation and being a real profession. And we are very much about teaching students the basics and principles of music here and getting them to enjoy it and collaborate. But we also want to make sure that we empower people to let them know that making music is still a profession and that there are ways of doing it. And so we are very proud to have Randy and Jason here, and they're promoting their book, which looks like it's a great read. And I guess you guys have been doing the circuit, so to speak, so I know you guys have a lot of information, which is fantastic. I'll apologize in advance that I'll be running in between here and our theater. We have a production in our theater that I'm supposed to give opening remarks to as well. So enjoy the event, enjoy the room, enjoy our guests, and please make sure to follow us on brooklynmusicschool.org or all of our social media. If you decide to post something, please tag the school. And without any further ado, I'll leave it up to Mr. Sohrab. One more thing. I just wanted to introduce the head of our jazz department, Mr. Jeff Newell, who's here. If you have any questions about programming, feel free to talk to Jeff. I see we have some youngsters here. Jeff has, I think this is his third year having a jazz intensive here at the Brooklyn Music School. And we have a whole host of other great programs here, private lessons, group classes, ensembles, so on and so forth. And we have another one of our own, Mr. Jack Henson, that's here too. Jack, sorry England lost today, but they moved on, so we're good.
Thank you. Just one thing I would like you to know is actually the reason why I invited Jason and Randy is because when I heard that they are writing a book about making money with music, I thought, oh great, last year we had a workshop with Steve Gordon, an entertainment lawyer, who also published this book at that time, and we invited him, and he really came with a great presentation. So to continue with books for our members to empower themselves with knowledge and wisdom, I thought that's great that we have another book to offer to our membership. So the thing is that they're going, I'm very sure, talking about this book, but there's so much that it can be covered in 45 minutes. So the thing is, if you want to know more, the two things we can do is, one is you buy the book, because you know, MFM says making music is a profession, which means that we ask to be paid. So when other people do a great job for us musicians, we should pay them, support them as well. So this is one thing I wanted to emphasize, that if they finish and you feel like you want to ask more, buy the book or try to catch them later in the room, but hopefully maybe they come another time.
Yeah.
Because the book is published in September, right?
September 4th, yes.
And they said that they would like to come to New York, back to promote their book. So maybe that's another chance to invite them back to MFM. So,
Well, thank you for coming. I think that's all the time we have. Hopefully it was educational. Oh, go ahead.
You know, I don't know about you, but I feel nothing but joy when I play my music. I'm just thinking about that. The hard part is the business part very often, you know. That can definitely bite you. But considering that we've got an intimate room here and we actually can make it really interactive and we love it. That's actually one of our favorite things. So we're not here to kind of give a lecture and just say a whole bunch of stuff. We have certainly a lot of information, but we're happy to go back and forth like we were even the other day. A little bit about our background, just a little bit about where we came from and how we got to be here, because it's kind of follows along with what we're doing here. We've released 20 albums and over 500 songs, and we've licensed music to Disney and Viacom. We've written music for TV, films, and theater. And a lot of these things happen just because we put our music out there, to our great surprise. Like the Disney deal came in because of something we put out on our third album. That was a song we were going to drop from the album.
yep.
You've probably seen this before, but it's like a throwaway song. And then someone likes it and licenses it, and it's out there. And what we actually ended up doing at some point is putting out a PDF in January of 2006 called the Indie Band Survival Guide, and it was just the things that we had learned to date on promotion, publicity, on marketing, on copyright, just a little bit about licensing. We didn't know a ton about it at that point. We've learned so much since then. And to our surprise, Billboard magazine wrote about it, and you love talking about this. South by Southwest, which year did you think it was?
I think it was the year that, was it 2006?
It would have been 2006.
But it was actually, the PDF that we put out called the Indie Band Survival Guide actually was picked up, some unbeknownst to us, at South by Southwest, which is where the music industry kind of talks amongst themselves. And they actually had printed up copies of this PDF, 101-page thing, and passing it around saying, well, this is where the industry is going. Everybody's going to have to do it themselves. And these guys out of Chicago or whatever are talking about that. So that was interesting to us. But we learned about that later. All we knew was we were contacted by Billboard, who wanted to do a story on us, the Associated Press, then after that, Reuters. And the next thing we knew, we got contacted by a literary agent, and he said, hey, have you ever thought about making it a book? We said it was a book. We print it. You can download it on the web. He said, no, a Dead Tree version. Dead Tree version is actually paper. So we're like, yeah, okay. So we said, oh, we'll go out and do that. And then he convinced us that like, you have to write a book proposal and say what you would do and how you would write it and all this other kind of stuff. Next thing we know, we wrote the Indie Band Survival Guide, the DIY Music Manual, which is actually out in the UK with Random House. Indie Band Survival Guide is actually with St. Martin's, which is here in New York City. And we ended up writing a second edition from that, so it's sold out of a lot of printings. And then the third edition is actually going to be the Making Money from Music edition, where we've centered everything on and focused on how do you make money from music, because that's what musicians actually want to know.
And in particular, we've done nothing but research those ways. Some of you might be familiar with the Future of Music Coalition. Michael Bracey founded it. He put out a study that was the 50 top ways musicians made money. And we found that fascinating. And then they've updated it since then. But it really formed the basis for the initial list that we put together of all the ways that musicians made money. But we realized really quickly that there wasn't just 50, there was 51, 52. Before we were done, at this point, we're at 293. And we keep researching it and finding more and more and more ways that musicians have made money from music. And it's not just, of course, about the music. And unsurprisingly, if you really think about the artists that have made it all the way to the top, some of their income just comes from their persona, from their brand, from who they are, that they put their name on it. And so there's a whole set of aspects of all these things that come together and merge together. we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different ones, but I'd like to start out by talking about some of the key concepts that we found that other musicians have used to really make it successful. One of the top ones is about segmenting their customers. We found this to be a really surprising thing that came together from not just music, and not just music books, but business books. You'll find that if you take, for example, the video game industry, which lives and thrives on metrics, they're hungry for metrics. They use metrics to make decisions. They don't do anything without consulting and seeing what the numbers are. Every click you do on your phone is recorded, and they use that to make decisions about what to do. They classify their customers in 3 different categories, between minnows, dolphins, and whales. That's actually the terminology they use. And it's great because it makes you think, okay, who's the minnows? Okay, they're giving you like $1 or up to $20 maybe. Then you've got your dolphins. They're, if you're thinking about a live show, they're the ones who are buying the t-shirts and a couple other pieces of merch. But the whales are so important to them that they actually focus everything on trying to get them to pay money. And these are the ones who are giving you quite a bit more. In the music business, I'd say they're giving you $50 or more in a night on stuff. And if you think about what they need, just to give you another business parallel to this, the casinos actually have a profit and loss statement on each of their high rollers. That is as if they were a business. We spent this much to grab a helicopter and fly this guy from California into Vegas, and we paid this much for whatever it is, the free meals and the rest, and here's how much you gambled, here's how much you won or lost. They actually have it down to that. So those whales, those top-end ones, are the most important ones, are the ones to focus your business on, which means, as it relates to the products, merch, and experiences that you put out and make available to them as products, need to be aimed at the whales, because they will give you 50 to 80% of your income. This is based on actual, metrics and numbers and everything that comes together. Well, what does that mean? It means that if you have a merch table, since I know we have a lot of live musicians here, if you have a merch table, your merch table has to have a high end. It has to have things that they're going to look at and say, I've got to have one of those. And that thing should be like $100, $200, $250. It should be high-end item. And you can do that for each piece of merch that you have if you really think about segmenting it out. So what I mean is, in a poster, you can have a little mini poster that just costs $1 or $2, so that your minnows has something they can pick up. Full-size poster for somebody who's wants to get something nicer, and you can even do higher grades if you want. And then, of course, the whale version is a frame poster. Now, here's the great thing. Even if you never sell that frame poster, even if you're charging $200 for it, that will make more sales down the line. And it's a psychological thing. It's something, and I talked about this the other night for those of you who were at the Carnegie Hall talk. There's a book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. It's by Robert Cialdini, Dr. Robert Cialdini. And he literally just researched all the ways to influence people. Here's a few that are directly related to this. Number one, when you have something more expensive like that, you'll tend to drive people to the middle one. But if you don't have that top end, you'll sell less of it. Which is why the average time when you see people making, let's say, vacuum cleaners, and you have different levels of vacuum cleaners, you'll have a high-end one that has features on it that you don't figure anybody wants. And they don't. They don't care if they sell any of those, because their midline is higher. And they're like, I could have got this crazy $1,000 vacuum cleaner, but I bought the $200 one. And so your products can always have a high end that drives the others. Here's another thing that's straight out of that book, the Influence book. It's really handy. People are willing to go more into something once you already have a commitment from them. And this whole book is based on research they've done into human psychology. So they just did a test where they had a sign, they asked people to put a sign in their window in their houses saying, please drive safely. Okay, so what? But they put the sign up. And they sometimes had a really kind of large sign that it was a little unsightly, kind of block your view, and a smaller one. No surprise that the smaller one was more likely to be picked up by a certain amount of people. So then what they did was they tried to get people to do the higher sign, the bigger sign, after they had already agreed to do the smaller sign. And when they went back and did it, far more people agreed to do it than originally when they just asked for the larger one straight up. Which means that once you can get a commitment from somebody, once you actually know who your customers are, minnows, dolphins, and whales, and you get them to commit somehow to you, you can always upsell them to something bigger, and you're much more likely to succeed at that. So this type of thing is also true of nearly every other type of thing that we have nowadays from a crowdfunding standpoint, from a patronage standpoint. If you've never heard of patreon.com, it's something to check out. Allows people to give you money every month. The reason why your first level of crowdfunding is always $1 and your first level of patronage is always $1 is because you just need to get them in the door to make some kind of commitment. One of the things that has been said, I cannot remember the exact quote, but on the internet they say that the difference between free and $1 is nearly infinite. It's huge. But once you get past that one hurdle and they've already given you your credit card and they've already done some business with you, you can get them to go higher. So what is this? It means that low end stuff is an on-ramp. It's an on-ramp to get them to commit more and more and to become more and more part of everything you have. So one other aspect of this that you might find interesting in that you're not limited to just doing physical merchandise. Nowadays, and actually this has been true for quite a while, what people are paying for and what they come to your shows to get is not just entertainment, but an experience. They're looking to have something more in their lives, which means that your shows can be more than just shows and you're not limited to just doing shows. And what we mean by that is some surprising sources of income. Among the ones that we have in that 293 list, one of them is before your show, you can let certain fans come to the sound check, which we were talking about earlier. They will pay for the privilege.
Well, Paul McCartney does that. Paul McCartney usually charges, I think it's 25 grand a head.
Right.
But
20
Paul McCartney.
25 grand a head.
Paul McCartney. Who's Paul McCartney?
Some guy, some musician we've never heard of, but he had a good idea. Charge $25,000 for your sound checks. Depending on how well you get to know your customers, which like if you're just going to venues and you're depending on their draw, that's one thing. But once you are established name, which some of you have, you can actually start pulling them into your world and start doing this and upselling it. The other aspect to this is on trying to get multiple income streams together with the exact same show, with the exact same things that you do. This ties along very nicely with what we talked about previously, which is that once you get somebody to commit in some wise, you can actually get them to raise it up and go higher. And what we mean by this is, here's kind of a way to think of blending all the different sources of income together. One is that you need multiple income streams. Although that sounds obvious, a lot of musicians focus on just a few. Sometimes the person to do this, just keep in mind, is not just the musician, it's the manager. It's whoever's putting together the act and the show, because they're the ones who are worried about your whale customers and trying to pull it in. The other is that manager would want to blend the active and passive streams of income together. The distinction between those two are that the active sources of income are the ones where you're trading time for money, which means that if you're sick, if you're not doing it for whatever reason, if you're out of town, you're not getting that source of income. The passive income is the income that comes to you no matter what you're doing with your time. And that's things like royalties. That's things like licensing your likeness and other aspects of it. All of that comes together from these passive sources. And as we went through that huge list of nearly 300 sources, some of them were active, some of them were passive. Passive are harder to develop, but once you get them, the nice thing is they form a nice base. And probably the most interesting thing is that the patronage that we talked about earlier, when you get people directly supporting you on a monthly basis using some of these sites, once you start pulling all this kind of stuff together, patronage becomes a passive source of income because they're going to pay you monthly no matter what you're doing. You do need to give them rewards that they care about, but they don't need to be the active sort of rewards that require your time. And that becomes a nice base set of income that becomes consistent income compared to the inconsistent income. That's another blend that we've seen. Also are stacking the parallel sources of income. So multiple income streams is one thing, but on a single show, what we found all kinds of artists doing, and I know that you have to be equipped to do this kind of thing, but if you can stream your show, for example, you can actually charge pay-per-view for the stream of the show. At the same time, you're charging for tickets for people to see you in person at the show. Was that an aha moment?
Mm-hmm.
Facebook Live is one thing. Let me blow your mind even further. There are sites besides Facebook Live, which that's free, although I think you can limit it in Facebook Live, that they can actually take people's payments and do pay-per-view events just like a fight or something like that. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
A band can do that now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We give away our stuff for nothing on
Yeah,
Facebook.
that's the point. They want you to, but you don't need to give
And
it
you can't
away.
even save it. The save process is so arcane
Yeah.
that it disappears all after 3 days, and then people, we end up slugging each other up, thinking, well,
It's one of the 8 million links that we have in the book. That's one of the few I don't remember off the top of my
Isn't
head.
Show.co?
But you just
Is it Show.co?
no. Showco would do it. Yes.
Show.co.
Show.co is one of the sites that will do it.
Show.co.
Show.co. It's a sort of a pay-per-view for streaming.
Yep.
Show SHOW.co. But that's not the only one. There's a number of places that will charge for premium access to a stream. And so if you can get a stream off of a show, which a lot of you can, a lot of these venues have it anyway, grab a feed off of that. Once you establish that relationship with your fans, then you actually have something you can pull them in even further. Or you can make it a part of a patronage award. So it's not just, I'm going to pay you, I'm going to charge you to get access to this one show, but if you give me $10 a month, you get access to our shows. See how that works?
Can I add a couple then?
Yeah, please.
Other services that can pay you for participating? Is it YouNow?
YouNow is one.
Yep, YouNow.com.
Yep, that's one of them.
StageIt.
Oh yeah, Stage It's a good one.
StageIt.com. Concert Window. And Street Jelly.
Yeah, Street Jelly is
They all
actually
have these
it's
wonderful names.
surprisingly a good one. That one actually got a lot of buzz for a while. The interesting thing about these sites is that some of them also allow you to do online tips as well as charging. So you could also do it for free and just say pay me tips.
Mhm.
So you can flip it and do it that kind of way as well. But don't think just because they're paying their way onto the thing that you can't also get them to pay other things, because now you've got them and they're already paying you something. You can still charge for access to the recording after the pay-per-view event. Even after that, because they may have loved it so much they may want to buy it. And so now you're monetizing the show because you get the door, you're getting the pay-per-view, and now you're getting the post-sale. Plus,
How do you convince a club, for example, Smalls, they go Smalls?
do you get the stream afterwards, or can you get the stream afterwards?
You mean, can the musician get a copy?
Yeah,
Correct.
yes.
I don't know. Good question.
Because that is something that, this is part of why when you're a musician, you do need to develop a following directly, because you're all worldwide artists, obviously. We're all international artists for the second you put your stuff out there. And when you're streaming, you're international because you're putting it out there. But if you develop that, whether the site is streaming it, they want your stream afterwards because they want to hear what you got going on. and they want regular content. People are the amazing thing to me in today's world is, in spite of how much content there is, which is an overwhelming amount, people still always want more. And what I mean by that is, you see people waiting at a traffic light just as a pedestrian. Unfortunately, also when they're in the car, they're checking their phone, right? I mean, they're looking at stuff. They're actually even sometimes checking for entertainment, for distractions. That's what it's all about. And so, from the point of view of your direct relationship with your fans, which you may or may not want to develop, I can understand if you don't. I'm just speaking to the people who do. At that point, one of the cool things you can say is, "Hey, I just played a show last night, and here's the stream, and you can buy it, or if you're a patronage member, you get access to it when it comes out."
What was that last one, concert, what? You had stages?
Street Jelly, concert window.
Street Jelly?
Yes.
Streetjelly.com.
I know, it's a weird name.
I don't care about the name, I just want to know.
That's what it is. Hey, yeah, I always say a good name is one that you could say while drunk in a large bar and someone else could say, "What? Okay."
Do you want tip jars?
That's what wins. Yeah, tip jars would be great.
Here's some tip jars.
Thanks.
Where people can electronically do that. You already know about PayPal Me, right?
I don't know
PayPal.me.
about any.
Okay, PayPal.me.
These are tip jars.
One way that
It's a
somebody can
concept.
always give you money, right? If you're signed up, you can take money if they have PayPal.me.
Yeah,
It's like a check, but electronic.
let me roll it back because I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, let's
We're
back
just
up.
talking about tip jars as a concept, but let's call them digital tip jars
I
now.
got a picture right here.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
an analog.
That's an analog tip jar. Here's the problem with analog tip.
That's okay though.
Here's the thing about analog. The analog tip jars is that people don't carry cash around as much, and so there's also a digital thing that you can have if you want to be able to take credit cards called dip jar.
Yep.
Now, I play in the street,
Yeah.
so you're right. What is it?
Here's a whole bunch.
Ready?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me put it in.
We've got a whole we've got a part of the book that's just about this as well.
Yeah, this
as
is like even on street performances, you know.
We have a- we
there's
have a
a couple
section
things that
on
we
it.
can talk about.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You already got the first couple, but set out a tip jar, which you've done, analog one, or donation box, and then you got these digital ones. So we were talking about PayPal.me,
Okay.
mobile apps like Busk.co, Busk.co, which is actually a site that's all about street performances
Yeah.
and how to actually get you to get more money through street performances and actually to celebrate street performances as well. Showslinger.com.
Show Swinger.
Showslinger, yeah, like gunslinger. Showslinger.com.
Good name.
And here's the other idea. If you have a Patreon page, you could use a QR code. Yep, there
We'll
we
show
go.
you-
We're gonna get. Well,
I'll
I think
show
we
you
need
what
to
it looks
talk. I
like.
think we need to talk about that. And then you can actually point people instead of when they take their phone out, instead of videotaping you, they could be, hey, point it at the QR code and drop me a buck.
If I can get them to, instead, of reaching the pocket of a dollar, grab their phone and just flash it at something.
You got it.
So I was just
What will do that?
just about to say that. They have their phone out. The beautiful thing is with things
You're
like
almost there.
You're almost there because
Exactly.
the thing with QR code.
Yeah, let's see if we can pull one up.
I'll pull one up, but I'm
Meanwhile,
I'm
let him set up the QR code thing real quick.
Go ahead.
Dipjar.com.
Keep it up.
Dipjar.
DIPJAR.com
Okay.
is another one. Yeah, Bus can also help you sell music when they donate to you.
Yeah. So
Or if
hey,
you- or
donate
if
to
you
me
have-
and you'll get music.
Right, or if you have
So
physical products
it's an
on hand.
incentive.
But I have to have some sort of a very instantaneous digital connection with them, formed spontaneously, because they're walking by. They're not, the break dancers get people to crowd around. The saxophone players, they walk by. Okay, that's fine. As long as it's
Well,
money.
now we have another piece on this, which is to kind of make it inviting. And there's an aspect of this. We researched this too. And playing on the street is, of course, an art, and naturally they're good at keeping people to stick. But there's an aspect of it where we found a number of sites that talked about the right way to do it. And one of it is, surprisingly, and I don't know if you do this, you might, but if you put a cheap rug or something out so there's like a space for you, then it's like this is your stage. And suddenly they're more inclined to want to stick around, not, okay, this is just somebody who's set up temporarily and is just going to pick up in a second. It becomes like inviting kind of thing. And there's also a question of how you arrange it naturally is important. Then behind it, if you can put up something, you could even use your case, and if you're clever about it, and put the places where they can find you, they actually would be, if they start digging what you have, to do things with their phone. Now, let me show you what a QR code looks like.
I think I know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that more of like a subconscious, kind of like,
Mhm.
you know?
There's a few other aspects, speaking of the subconscious thing. And this is something I learned from reading this one book about retail. There's a rule called the 10 and 5 foot rule. Within 10 feet, you just nod to people, so you acknowledge their presence, and that's what hooks people in to go to a counter. Within 5 feet, and it's hard to do while you're playing, but you can find a way to do it. You actually, if you didn't have an instrument in your mouth, you would talk to them. You're like, oh, hi, can I help you? Because they've broken the 5 foot rule. Now, if you're playing, then, you just nod at the people at the distance, but when they're within 5 feet, you actually
Turn
face
to
them.
them, yeah.
And that is what draws people in. It's a magnetic aspect
Now
to
they're
it.
committing to you.
Again, this is a psychology thing. This is a QR code. You've probably seen it before. Now, you can make one for any website or anything that you want. The amazing thing is, when you're taking pictures, like you're talking, and you actually highlight a QR code, what will happen is your phone, I don't know if this one's an active one, is the thing, I used an example. The phone will actually say, oh, this is a website, do you want to go to it?
Oh, cool.
Really?
Yes. So like I was said, you already have their phone out.
Oh, it's like the ID to direct them
So
to all.
you're saying
Yes.
a
Got
it.
poster with this QR code on it displayed prominently, and they're taping me and all that, and I might have a little thing, if you like, tape all you want, there's this QR code.
Yep, and then the QR code can send them anywhere, including places to buy merch, buy your music, to go to your patronage, which we talked about is a monthly thing. If they really like your stuff, they'll do that. You capture it then, especially when you say, hey, I've got regular on patronage, or get a free song, tip and get a free song. Well, how much more likely are they going to be to do that once you get them like that?
Yeah, right.
And the thing about Busk and some of those other apps is that they're not just transactional apps, which is like, okay, I'm going to a store here and I'm buying a candy or something and leaving. I never get to know who they are. These sites actually give you a relationship with the people when they leave. And so then you could start sending messages to them and saying, hey, I'm playing on the street over here now, or I'm playing at this venue at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And you start developing your direct audience just from playing on the street.
Also, the virtual bus, somehow they have a digital presence where you can't attend this bus, in real life, you can visually, and you can contribute later.
So, okay,
Yes.
so this leads to a really, what you're saying is absolutely the case, and you're going to love this story. One of the things that we ran across that we're really enamored of was this one woman, her name was Claire. I'm trying to think of her last name, but I can make sure that you get the article link. But in any case, she played on a boardwalk of some city. It was near the water, and it's like a touristy area. She played for hours, wasn't making a ton of money, but enjoying it. And then she realized that she could angle her phone at her while she played. And then she figured, well, hey, wait a minute, I could get on some of these streaming places. So she started to stream it for free. For free. So just like you're talking about Facebook, you're not getting anything out of it. But then because she did it so long, so many hours, because she was doing it, she had people online just loving her playing. But then it kept going because they started to get more and more into her world, and they started to make requests, and she was interacting with the people on the phone even more than the people on, in real life on the little boardwalk. And then she started to do these various things that got them.
No,
I thought you were.
I twitched.
Okay. Well, stop that.
Hey,
Quit
keep
it. So she started to have more and more people doing things that are online support, like online tipping. She started to use some of the sites that we said before, like, what was it,
You show?
They're all very,
You
very,
show?
yeah, you show, some of them are very different than each other. Some of them have like a little currency inside of it. Others have different ways to monetize. But because she was out there and playing, that is content. And people love that. And they love it especially if you've got regular content. And then more and more, they started to pay for requests. My favorite story was the one where she found on the boardwalk one of these places that would allow you to record a song and get a record for it. And it was a one-of-a-kind record. And she took requests, and one couple paid $250 to have her record one particular song. And so they got to see it, her recording it, and other people got to see it too, which is cool because it was live. She took that one album, put it in a little thing, and mailed it out to them and made $250.
Wow.
And that was just because she's just out there and doing this kind of stuff. Again, I don't know if any of this could work for you. Maybe it's a pain and too much, but the point is, this is what we mean by I don't know, it's funny, we always talk about the fundamental stuff, but this is about layering, stacking multiple sources and catching a fan base.
I think the main thing to
in
get
your
out of
world.
it is that these are revenue streams that are actually out there. There are services out there that you can partner with that actually could do this. The other thing is to experiment with it, like she did, like Claire did, and then to be patient with some of this stuff, right? And then see what works best for you, your situation, and your music. That's what she did. It's not like she kind of experimented with these tools and ended up in the spot that she is. And that's really the lessons. And that's what this whole book is about. It's just one revenue stream after another after another. Yes, there are fundamentals that are tied to this, like Randy said about the customers, knowing your customers. Clearly, the person who bought the record was like one of the whales, right? That spent $250.
That's a whale,
bucks.
and see why the whales are so important.
They're important because when you do land a whale, you eat for days.
Well, it's interesting with this analog tip thing. I put up usually $1 as, I have little signs of tips where, I clip $1 or maybe, 5 sometimes to the thing. So I clipped my 20 up there, my fake 20. I got three $20 tips.
That's how it does it. It's social. That's called social proof. It's one of the things in the. It's
That's
one of the
another
things in the
psychology thing.
influence
Yeah.
book. It's called social proof, and when somebody sees somebody doing something, that others would do it. One of the studies they did to prove that was true. You're gonna love this. Was they just went on the street with a couple people. They were just researchers. And they just looked up at the top of a building. There's nothing going on up there. And sure enough, people on the street are, looking. There's nothing going. And so if they see that other people are doing it, they're likely. There's another clever trick with tipping that I saw, and this one's straight out of Martin Atkins. Now, Martin Atkins is one of the most brilliant music marketers I've run across. He was the drummer. Pill. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Public Image Limited. He did Pigface. He founded Pigface. He also did. He was the drummer in Head Like a Hole, 9 Inch Nails. Yeah. So he's just great. He's out of Chicago. If you ever come out there, you got to meet the guy. But he put in this thing in the tip jar and he seeded it. That's called seeding the tip jar. So he seeded the tip jar with some high bills, and then it says only sexy people tip. That's what it said on it, which was like this, tease the, sexy people tip, And
But I'll give you another one. You can do one of these things where you have 2 tip jars, 2 cups, and you actually have a question.
oh, that's an awesome
and
one.
you say, well, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer X or Y? So you guys got to come up with a question. It could be a musician. It could be something, Democrats, Republicans, or whatever. And then you see both of those tip jars, and that actually is like, oh no, I'm gonna put it in that tip jar, and that has actually been shown to actually elicit more tips as well. Pardon?
Terrifying.
What did you say?
Terrifying.
Terrifying. That's what I thought you
Terrifying
said.
is what he said. Definitely. Terrifying.
Terrifying. That's what I thought you said. And
Yeah.
I was like, wait, I've
So
been
in
mentioned.
other words, you're signing your tip jar, like you got one over here, it's sort of like
Yeah.
a question at each one?
Or put them close together, like this, where you have 2.
Okay.
And then one is the answer for yes, and one's the answer for no, or one's the answer for what's your favorite sports teams? So the Yankees or the
Yeah, you've got we're
Red
coming down to a
Sox.
World Cup, and that people would vote on that. We are completely game.
Okay.
I have a list. I'll get through this list that you'll like this list. It's 13 qualities a music business should have to compete with free, which is, I know one of your favorite topics.
Being called to compete with.
To compete with free.
So we all know, like you guys have already said this, that it's like, well, our music is just being thrown on Facebook and it's free, and it's always free, and it's always free. So how do you compete with that? How do you?
And not only that, how do you compete with the fact that there's a lot of free other stuff out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are ways to do it. There's real ways. And this is another thing we researched. And it started from one blog article we found, but then of course, we kept expanding it as we usually do. We kept finding other things and other people who do it. Here's the list, 13. Number 1, live experiences cannot be stolen, pirated, you can certainly do it for less, but it is something happening live and now, and there's something about it that's distinct from everything else. There's a lot to it, of course.
We speak to a lot of digital musicians, people who just record. So they, like you guys who play live, are like, yeah, I get it. But that's kind of an eye opener for some of the ones who just record music and put it out there on the web. It's like, where's your live experience? Where's your time and space?
But let's amp this up a little bit too, though. Broaden it, because it's actually not live shows that we said. It's live experiences.
Right.
So a show is one thing, but you can add actually quite a bit to it. One of the things we can recommend. I don't recommend too many things like offhand. Like we'll usually give you a bunch of links like we do. There's one in particular. It's about live shows that just blew our mind and continuously blows our mind every time we see it. Tom Jackson Productions is the website. Are you familiar with Tom Jackson's work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who is gonna nod and say yeah. He talks about the language, the physical language of the show, and talks about the fact that I guess I could say it best like this. He will take a band that he's working with and record them on video. And then he will play back the video, fast forward it to some random place, mute the sound, turn it around and say, which song is this? Which song are you playing right now? And if they cannot answer the question, they have not made the songs look different, even though they sound different. And so he talks about how to use the stage. And actually, we do some of that when we talk and we have a stage. Like right now, we're behind this. And it's a little harder as sax players, but I actually got a clip mic just so I can get moving around. So whoever's soloing obviously should be out front. That's one aspect of it. But it goes bigger than that in that you can actually make the visual experience match the emotional experience that the music is creating. And when you merge them together, it creates what he likes to just call moments, which are these moments of connection. We've all felt that at different times, that connection to the fan. But it's not quite choreography, but when you plan your shows to include this kind of thing, it comes together. That guy, I'm not going to say anything bigger because some of you have heard, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's very.
I've seen him.
Isn't it mind blowing?
Perfect.
I've seen him take a band and in 20 minutes transform them from crazy, unfocused energy to super mega star sing ensemble.
Yeah.
His work is amazing.
And as an audience member, you
Yeah.
feel it. There's something
feel
like,
it.
You feel it, and you're like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then as a musician, I'm like, oh, I need to replicate that so my audience feels it.
Yeah.
And so he's onto something. He's tapped onto something really good.
I've often thought about this. There's a lot you can do with your live show to make it so that people have to come back and drag their friends along with, and that's what he does. Here's trying to get through the rest of the list as quickly as possible.
That's right.
When you make a show, people are actually in their entertainment looking for actually both. This is really seems paradoxical. They're looking for both certainty and uncertainty. They kind of know what they're going to get, but they want to be surprised as well. You get too much certainty, it's boring. Too much uncertainty, it's chaos. But you blend the right kind of thing that they know they're going to be surprised, and it comes together. In Chicago, Blue Man Group's been running for a long time, and they do actually a good job of blending the two. And if you're thinking of the show elements, not just the songs, not just the music, but the experience, you can blend that in. That is what makes people open their wallets. Connections, this is number 3, it's pretty big. Connections with their identity. So there's some types of artists that do a really good job of speaking to who people are, so that when they come out, they say, yeah, this is me. Those of you who are doing jazz is a part of an identity of somebody who's coming out and seeing it. And if you actually play that aspect up, you might be able to connect it. But it can go beyond that. The ones who do it really well, just to use an extreme example, and I'm going to actually reuse them in a few of these categories, are things like, have you ever heard of juggalos? You ever hear of that kind of music? It's pretty crazy music. It's these people, they invented this entire world. And this ties to a few other things, so I may as well tie it in now. Themes is another part. This is also related to themes. So people pay for themes, they pay for connections, and they pay for, I'm going to leave stories for a little later and some of these other things. So this is like a theme and a connection. The fans are derided throughout everything because these guys dress in clown makeup, not just the bands, but the audiences. And there's such a huge group that they actually marched on Washington in 2017. You can actually see the pictures. At the same time, they had a Trump support march, and it was very funny. It was hilarious. I mean, the result was, you've got to see it. Just look it up online. Check it out sometime. But anyway, this whole theme that they have is kind of let your freak out. That's their whole thing. They sell the clown makeup. They sell all the paraphernalia related to everything about this identity that people have. And the theme is obviously this clown thing. They took it to such an extent, they've merchandised it in a way that I haven't seen very many things do it. The closest I can come up with is Kiss, that there's ever done anything similar. And what I mean is, it's not all about that. It's also like there's these videos they make. They're very low quality, low end things that are about these ultra violence with clowns and all this. And people buy the videos. They buy the merchandise that they have is ridiculous. But it goes well beyond just the music. Now, I'm not saying you have to wear clown makeup or do something like this. But there's aspects of your identity that you can pull into it, and it's just sort of a generic, not a generic, but a high-level theme. A few other things. Authenticity. That one's fairly straightforward. I won't dig into that one, but it's, the more you can keep it real, the more that people actually want authentic emotions. They want authentic experiences. Unique interpretations. That's what jazz is, right? There's all these covers that everybody knows right out of the real book, but it's your version of that they want to hear. And so they'll come out and see you even though if everybody else is playing the same music. If you can really put a spin on it, as you said that you started to do with some of your Afropop, some of the other things that you were working on, if you amp that up even more and sharpen it, people will come for that even though there's other things that are similar.
I think so.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying here. Stories are incredibly powerful things that I think drives nearly everything that we're doing here. And you can actually weave a story around your show as well. You can actually weave it around multiple shows and get people to come back. You can also weave it into your web presences and everything else. I won't go into huge detail on this, but there's a lot of clever things you can do with stories pulling it. Number 8 is pretty key. It's ideas turned into real things. The way that the business magazine put it, which I thought was a little hard to grasp when the way they said it was embodiment. And what I mean by an idea turned into a real thing, it's your logo that's on a t-shirt, now it's real. It's a keychain, it's real. And it's not just about merchandise. It's also about experiences. So if you talk about an idea hey, I'll just talk about one of them. There's a band, and I'm reusing this one, but in a different way. There's a Celtic band that we know. They just play traditional Celtic music, the Irish drinking songs we've all heard before. But they had a really good and engaged fan base. And after that fan base got into it, they actually toured Ireland. They said, we're going on an Ireland tour. You want to come along with us? You'll have to pay this much, but you can tour Ireland with me. They paid for it. And they paid for it because it's a real experience that was kind of came in. That's yet another way also to make money from your fans. They just want to hang out with you. Another idea for this was a cruise. There's artists I know that did really well. They performed regularly on the cruise, but we're going to do this big cruise. They actually not only captured money on the front end of that, but on the back end of that, tips. Everything else came the other side of it. Personalized or customized products. What is a personalized product? We just talked about one. That one Claire made a one-off record for somebody. That's not hard to do from our standpoint. I mean, you can pull these things together and make them customized. Here's another customized product. Just recently, for a friend of ours, we made a song for someone's wedding. Commissioned us to do it, and gave like kind of their story. She even wrote some lyrics. He wasn't a musician, so weren't the best lyrics. But we worked it. We made a whole song out of their life, and they performed that at the wedding. And it was great. Completely customized. It's a song. We're good at writing songs. It doesn't take us much to do that. It comes together. Number 10, whenever you make something scarce or rare, the more rare something is. I love talking about this. I talked about this the other night. You'll remember this. But I even brought it up. I've now spoken, like, this is like the third, fourth time I've spoken today even. And I brought this up also for the others. Isn't it weird that if you have lots of something, it's worth less? But all of a sudden, all we have to do is make merch and say there's only 5 of these in the world, and suddenly it has more value. There's only 1 of these in the world. Okay, now there's even more value. Why? Because you took some t-shirt and maybe customized it somehow. And you're inventing value out of nothing. And that's your whale item. And then why? And then you charge $200 for it because you decide to charge $200. Is it worth $200? It doesn't even matter. But you know what? Someone might end up paying for it if you bring it all together. A few more. Number 11, accessible and findable products, entertainment, and experiences. This is actually just about whether something's within reach. There's a reason why when you're at the airport you pay $5 for a bottle of water compared to having it from home and it costs you almost nothing. It's because it's available there and you need it. It's within reach. So actually I have heard of bands that at festivals branded water. Yes, you can do that. There's places that will brand water, put your face on it, put your logo on it, and you sell the water and they want the water and you're actually making more money off of just playing at a festival. If they let you. They don't always let you. It depends on the kind of show. Certainly you could do that while you're busking.
Right.
And just leave out, just say, hey, throw in $5, here's the branded water. And you know what? People will pay $5 just to get the water because they're hot and they're in the subway. They want it. Number 12, consistently released entertainment. We talked about this. They want consistent entertainment. Consistent means you're releasing on a regular basis. That is the theme for Friday's talk tomorrow night. I'm talking about how to do a release schedule. And we're low on time, otherwise I'd go into that. So number 13, they actually want opportunities to support you.
They want opportunities.
Oh yes, once they actually like your music and like what they are, they want to support you. They realize that it's tough to be out there and be a musician. But if you're giving them something they like, once you say, okay, here's my Patreon page, you can pay me $10 a month, some people will be glad to do it if they like and they're into what you're doing. Especially taking the other 12 items that we just talked about. If you blend it right, you're actually creating more of a relationship and you can actually make it happen. But if you don't give them the opportunity, you're never going to capture that.
There's a Brooklyn musician called Jonathan Colton. You've heard of him?
Yeah, NPR. He's got the wait.
That's exactly right.
That's where he is now.
But you know how he got to where he is because he used the web, and it's a combination of using a story and he wanted to be a rock star, so he asked the web, how do I become a rock star? Because I have music, but I'd like to get it out there. Will you help me? And there were enough people who actually also wanted to support him and help him and be a part of his journey, which is part of the story piece, right? And he was also authentic. So, he had kind of a little niche.
He had a niche.
He did. He was kind of a geeky guy.
Very geeky.
So his music appeals to geek internet type people in that aspect. But now he is.
He's big on NPR.
He wrote music for SpongeBob SquarePants the musical.
The musical, but look, we can look at that now. And you can go, oh my God, how did he get to that point? But when we wrote the Indie Band Survival Guide, which is like 11 years ago, really, when we were writing it, We were talking to him, and he did not do music for SpongeBob. He hadn't really done the. Did he just do the Portal music
No,
on the video?
he had
game?
not done it
He
yet.
had not done that. His biggest thing was he couldn't believe that he had people in Seattle who would book and find him a venue to play at. That if he would just show up, then they would handle all of the gigs for him. And in fact, they came back and said you could play at this venue.
They
or
got
you could play at this
multiple
venue.
venues. And guess what? Guess what their agent, their finder's fee for that was? What kind of cut they took out of his
It's your
his
favorite.
fee?
$0.
Zero, nothing. They just
$0.
wanted him to play. They were
They just
thrilled
wanted
to have
to be
him come
there.
out.
They wanted an opportunity to support him, and they
dropped his
wanted to
pen.
hear him live in Seattle.
What place is this?
What place is this?
Wait, no, what venue is this? Yeah.
Oh,
No, venue
what
still.
fans are these?
It's
Who
the
are
fans.
It's
The
not the
fans
venue.
that got the venue.
The fans did all
so
the
they
work
acted
to
as
book him.
Right.
Jonathan
Colton.
Yeah.
He's got quite an interesting history, and actually, there's a lot of lessons to be gained from his story.
But I think
But-
it's very important that if you look at what his story is now, he may seem like, oh, geez, he's okay, he's doing music for SpongeBob. He's done, he's toured.
Yeah,
in
he
front
did
of
music for video
some
games.
big band or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
He's done. You may
Toured
look at
with
it
They
now
Might Be
and you
Giants.
might dismiss it, but I guarantee, 11 years ago, we've been as we've been writing our books and writing about this stuff. He's been just systematically knocking them down and building up on his fan base and coming up with clever ideas and trying a lot of these things. And he just kept at it, by the way. He just kept working. I think when the first time we met him in Brooklyn,
Yep.
he said,
Never
hey,
forget.
meet me at this coffee shop.
Yeah.
And we go to the coffee shop and we asked him, like, what's your day like? And he goes, actually, I am here at this coffee shop and I spend, 4.5 hours writing my fans. Writing my fans back and writing them and asking them for help and all this other kind of stuff and just writing them. Yeah. But that's a lot of work. That's like a day job. But he did that. But he had a vision and he had a goal and he wanted to get his music out there and get it heard and all that kind of stuff. Now he doesn't write his fans 4 hours and a half a day. He does not do that. So he's graduated,
He built
right?
it, yeah.
But he's systematically snowballed it up, right? And so as much as we've been writing this music, he's kind of come along on the journey and we've just been following all the wonderful
We
stuff
keep
that
writing
he's done.
about his ideas.
He actually has
oh.
done the boat cruise.
He did the boat cruise.
Like he's
That
got
did very well
enough
for
of a
him.
fan base.
What's the deal with the boat cruise logistically? You're talking about piggybacking on an existing cruise
You
line.
talk to a cruise
So you're
line.
renting a certain
They
number-
love
you're renting
having.
a certain number of room rentals, and you're renting a performance space for a guaranteed
Yep.
period.
Yeah.
And you're creating
You
events.
nailed it. You have to talk to the cruise lines. They all have different
You gotta
arrangements.
block book the situation.
Yeah. But you need a certain fan base to get to that point, right?
But then when you have it,
But
they
he
want
turned it
to.
on.
They want to
Try
hang
it.
out with you. They do.
But that's it,
At
yeah.
that point. So,
Definitely.
yeah, I'm looking at the time, and there's only 15 minutes.
But
to
there's
jam.
something
Mm-hmm.
huge, with all the advice you give is, actually you can't copy somebody, right?
What do you mean?
Like
Yes.
this gentleman you just mentioned, if I tried to do the same thing, it wouldn't work.
No, but you can use.
No, but you
No,
can.
no, that's the point.
That's
That's a
exactly
fair
right.
The
point.
thing is that.
Oh, right. I see what you're
Well,
saying. Please.
okay, please continue.
No, please. You.
Because every time when I talk to young musicians and they ask for advice, and so I tell you, what, I give you just an advice, but it wouldn't work. But as a living person with your connection, your background,
Yes.
how you deal with people, how good you speak, and this, you could do something similar, or you find something new on top of what you just heard.
Yes.
So,
I think that's a fantastic thing, and
But-
that's why what we write about is a lot of the strategies. We write a lot of the techniques. We do a lot of the research for musicians, so it's a one-stop shop. You can read about this stuff. We write for Electronic Musician Magazine. It is free. We have 164 articles
Something.
up there.
Yeah,
I think.
164.
We've been writing since 2015 a weekly column. It's free, and we talk about a lot of these things. But again, what we're doing is always doing the research to consolidate these strategies and techniques. We even go as far as like, here's how to do it. Here's 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. What we can't give you, and we talk about this in our books, can't give you the talent, but clearly everybody here in the room has talent. We can't give you the music that you're going to do. And we can't give you the motivation and this work ethic, like I just said about Jonathan Colton, 4.5 hours every day in a coffee shop. writing his fans because he's like, somehow this is going to work. I know it's going to work. So we can't give you that. But if you have that, you don't have to do a lot of trial and error. You can actually look at the books or the free stuff that's on Electronic Musician Magazine. You can also sign up at musicianable.com and get our presentations as well as our the newsletter that we're pushing out. So at least we give you these techniques and stuff that's out there, and it needs your creativity. That's a big thing where we press a lot. It's like if there's one thing musicians have, it's creativity. So it's like take these things, but then apply your artistic brain to some of these techniques. Think, how does this work? I'm actually marveled at, like, I'm thinking about your street performances this whole time. I'm like,
Me too.
How can he turn this? Can he sell merch at the street performance? You know, we were talking about the digital thing, but there's some of these techniques you might be able to.
Could you brand it? Is another thing.
Can you brand it? Right.
How could you make it so it's yours, your
Can
particular
you do
one?
a dueling saxophone thing with the other guy, and you kind of replicate a little piece of the magic of the dueling pianos that you came up with? I don't know, but that's the creativity stuff, and you start chewing on it. And the other thing that we always talk about is you test it out. Just try it, test it out. If it works, it works. If it works, actually, then go with it and amplify it.
But don't invest. You know,
But do little bets. is
Little
what they
bets.
say.
You have to. It has to be something that's. If you're gonna, I just talked to a student at SAE. That is where I was right before here, and he's like, I've got my family said they'd give me $8,000 to $10,000 to promote my work, and I'm like, okay, but you don't. I mean, you actually don't want it. In fact, actually, most of the time when I promote something, I do it for free. I actually find places that don't have any barriers at all, and then just try and get promoted. We talked about that the other night. You might remember the sailing thing. I talked about that a little bit. Are we over time? How are
No,
we doing?
we are good. 2-3 minutes more.
2-3 minutes.
So hopefully that piece is a key thing. So you should try some of these things. Make little bets. Don't go and overinvest like the students' parents are ready to go do. It's like try it out. If it works, or it sparks something that you angle it slightly different and it pops, go with it. Lean into it, and then boost it. That's what we're trying to.
That's
say.
another concept that we found similar to most successful artists is that they all, once they found out where it works, this is also true of that the video game industry I talked about, who lives on metrics. Once they find something that worked, that's what they invested in, and that
They
widened.
focus on that.
And then they got rid of the things that didn't. They just dumped it because they don't have the time, energy, money, etc. There's a big part of this that's that cycle where you're testing. Claire didn't happen on this whole audience thing. She just said, "Look at this."
Yeah. Just start live streaming her.
Yeah, live
her
streaming.
busking. Right. So that's good.
Good. So, what did we learn tonight from these two gentlemen?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the number two quality to compete with for your
Certainty and uncertainty. I can list them really quickly. Live experiences, we talked about that. Certainty and uncertainty, connections with their identity, authenticity, unique interpretations, stories, themes, ideas turned into real things or embodiment, personalized or customized products or events, rare products or experiences or scarcity, accessible and findable products, entertainment, and experiences. It's about the accessible part. That's the key. It's within arm's reach. Consistently released entertainment and engagement. Actually, the second part is what Jonathan Colton did when he answered people's engagement. 13, opportunities to support you.
Here's the thing. Let's help you out. So there is a way to actually make a CD for $0.
Physical CDs.
Physical CDs. You, as a street, if you're on the street and you want to get some merchandise going, you could put out CDs. Now it becomes a question of like cash.
Oh my.
It's like people have less cash on hand, so do they really have CDs to actually put in? But there's other things you can do. Customized USB drives, right?
Yeah, those are great.
My shows.
Pardon?
So I sell in my shows, my merchandise. I sell USB drives that have both MP3 and WAV files. Of
Yeah.
like
That's what I would tend to
3
do
or 4 or
nowadays.
5
Rather than
of,
CDs.
of
Oh,
my,
yes.
A lot
my
easier to
CDs,
carry.
and I say, buy one of these for $20, and you,
That's exactly
20,
right.
and they're more likely to spend $20 on something like that.
Music in there, and so
because they can use it
People like
afterwards.
that.
They do.
There's
But-
also a service that is called Kunaki.com. It's a CD.
Spell it?
KUNAKI.com. It's a CD duplication service. It's like no bells and whistles, no bling at all, just 100% utilitarian, Borg mentality. But you can like set up a release for nothing. Just upload all of your stuff. They got tools to do the artwork, and you can order as few as one and as many as 10,000, and and that way you don't have excess CDs laying around.
That's exactly right.
I like the flash drive idea, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
No, and you can actually up both of those, because you use something like CreateSpace, which is similar to that. It'll put it on Amazon for you, and so you can have CDs for sale on Amazon for nothing, because they literally pay, like when your customer buys it, it pays for the production cost.
Right, so it's as a
Further, here's another one up on that. And we're always talking about making things premium and whale-sized products. If you look on, just search on the term custom USB, you'll find a bunch of places that have all kinds USBs in every shape you can imagine. Like you can find a saxophone-shaped USB.
Except the words out of my mouth.
There you go. Now you can one up that, because you want to go even further. You can go to Alibaba,
Yep.
and Alibaba is a site that will allow you to design any piece of merchandise you can imagine. You find a vendor that does something similar to it, and you tell them what you want. So if you wanted to make one based on your logo, so that your USBs are based on your logo, and if your logo speaks to their identity, going back to that identity thing, they're more likely to actually want that. You can even make like a keychain based USB that's shaped like your logo, and so then it has use. It's
What's the
utility.
name? I'm sorry. What's the name of that USB thing that you mentioned before, Alibaba?
It's
Custom, I'm gonna call them out here. CustomUSB.com.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger ones.
Another one is PremiumUSB.com.
We have links for every.
These are branded, that's the main point.
It's
Well, these are just places you
ridiculous
can go
how
make
many-
the USBs. You could do that. These are the manufacturers.
Every
of these
corner
USB
of
ones,
every
and you
piece of
will be
merch
able to
we
brand
find
them. Yes,
sites
correct.
that every single thing you can imagine.
You will
It's just you
purchase
have to
them
give people
branded.
the
And
ideas to do it, let them
Discmakers.com
be
is
creative
actually they
about
do
what to do.
USBs as well.
We can't tell them what
Then
to
there's
do.
Alibaba, which is this incredible site that's like whatever you can dream, you'll get some
Any kind of merch, not just
manufacturing company
USBs.
that
They
will actually make it for you.
They will make anything
Yeah.
you could imagine.
Alibaba's a Chinese?
Yes.
It is, yes.
The famous Alibaba.
It is, yeah.
You would know Alibaba.
If you
Yeah.
explore
It's
it.
like the Chinese Amazon.
It is, but it goes beyond that, because they get you in touch with manufacturers and let them bid on making a thing of whatever description, whatever you invent in your head. And then they'll bid on it, you'll get one to do it, and then you can mass manufacture something that nobody else has in the world but you.
Yeah. Download cards are another thing that you can actually create.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do CDs, right? So I don't know if anybody's done download cards. Again, discmakers.com is yet another place that will do that. Dropcards.com. I think cardincluded.com is another one.
Yeah.
That's download cards.
That's a recent one we found.
You already know that cassette tapes, vinyl,
Yeah.
CDs.
People buy
and that
cassettes. It's
stuff.
kind of
If
fun.
you're purchasing download, I've used other people's download cards beneficially, but the question is, you're purchasing whatever the minimum run is, let's say you're purchasing 100. So what you're really paying for is the cardboard, the print, and then the use of the server, essentially. So are they hosting along?
There's different ones. They have. I know what you're asking. They have different services depending. So you have to look at them and see which ones work.
I'm sorry, just trying to get a
I
ballpark
know-
on how cheap this is versus doing.
Yeah,
like,
download
you get a
cards are
CD calling card,
fairly.
you get a
They're
DVD.
less expensive than CDs. More expensive than. Well, actually, it's probably the least expensive option you have to physically hand somebody a piece of music. But you don't need to physically hand people a piece of music, because what I would tend to do is just do a QR code and send people off to buy it. And like if you're on Spotify, you can do a Spotify link that will give you a picture that will allow people who are on Spotify to do it. I don't know if you've seen that before. I'll pull one up real quickly. But I think I actually am afraid that we didn't answer your question, because I think your question wasn't, can I sell CDs? It was, he got on the radio and didn't get a lot of sales, period,
Right.
is what you were really asking.
Yes,
And that's
correct.
because he didn't have enough of a relationship with that fans. It's not enough to get just played on the radio, because who knows who that artist was. I don't know who that artist was unless I do it. So we're out of time, and but we can keep this going us on the street if you want. Happy to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, Randy and Jason.
Thank you,
You
MFM.
came with many new ideas, and so you must make the decision. It's like when you compose music and you want to get it out. It's impossible that somebody can teach you that. But you got this book, you got that book, so you just find out what you're good in, who's listening, who do you want to sell, and be also very wise with your money. Don't use too much money for something and then you know already nothing's really happening. You
Right.
just do things what you believe in. This is important. And this is hopefully what these two gentlemen taught us today, that at the end of the day, you make the decision. It's like when you go to a doctor, he can't help you. You must heal yourself. And this is where some people are successful and many are not successful.
Yeah, and remember, we're all miserable.
See, we're just excited. That's why we're excited.
Yeah.
Which of you have Spotify? Do you have Spotify on your phones? If you do, see this image? This is something you could save to your photos. You could post this on. It's a code. Do you have Spotify?
I don't have.
Yeah.
You do. Okay, go to Spotify, and I'll.
Not the picture of the album, but just.
No, it's just the bottom part.
No, but
So
if it-
once you go to Spotify,
Besides the
hit the
road.
search. Hit the search.
Any day now. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So hit search,
Got it.
and in the corner it has a
Oh, got it. Son of a bitch.
and it has a search.
Search?
It's just the little search icon,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then now gotta go in here,
And then what?
and now hit the photo thing.
Yeah. Scan.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
and now hover over this. Now hit play.
Play.
Uh-huh.
It says add to playlist.
Is that
Come
similar to
on.
like a QR code?
It's like a QR code,
It
but
is.
it's just for.
It's a Spotify QR code.
So,
To a particular song or to a playlist, whatever you want to set it up.
so automatically, let's say I have a Spotify channel, right?
Yeah.
Automatically I have one of these, or I
Yes,
have to-
You do.
Just find
You
your-
have, you
find
can
it.
do
It's
this.
actually not just for yours. It's for every song that's out there. It
Yeah.
has that.
How
But
do you
you-
monetize that thing?
Well, when you get played on Spotify, you make a pittance. You know, it's a fraction of a thing. But the point is, once you make them into a follower, when you release music on a regular basis, they'll keep checking you out.
So this is to get a fan, not to get a dollar.
Yes.
Well, it's actually both.
Yeah, it makes you some
Well, not
dollars.
immediate dollar.
It's actually not an immediate dollar,
I
right?
wouldn't do
What
that.
is that called, the QR code for Spotify?
It's just called a Spotify code.
They just call it a Spotify code, yeah. But it is
Yeah, I
something.
think,
Is
That's
it
yours, right?
different in appearance from
Huh?
any other QR code or?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Looks like a waveform. This is what it looks like.
Ah, cute. All right, nice.
Okay, so now it's time to say really goodbye.
Okay, thank you again.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Very much.
And thank
This
you.
is
Peter.
only available in September. I'm sorry.
you
Yeah,
have PDFs out yet, or?
it's with a major
It's
publisher.
with St. Martin's, so
We
it's
literally
like through
can't give it
Amazon,
out.
you
We
can pre-order
don't
it and all
have.
that
It's
kind of
not because we're producing the books. It's because they are, and they would kill us if we give it out.
And one more thing, I want to say thank you to Pirus to
Thank you.
give this space.
Thanks for having me.